On this second part, I'm going to be discussing the way on how I control the character when it comes to movement, and at the same time, how are we able to render the character to the front end or to the client itself. So first and foremost, looking at our server code, previously I've discussed about the socket clients, but as you can notice, there is another object here at the top which says client units. And the reason why I created this is because I want each client, or each socket which is connected to our server to get monitored with regards to their character status, to their movement, and to their current coordinates, their X and Y position, and at the same time keep track of the key presses, of which I'm going to show you later on the client side code, on which if ever we hit some keys on the arrow keys here on your keyboard, there's gonna be a corresponding action or an emitting event, so to speak, on the socket, which then our server is going to listen to. As you can see here, there is a key press event which actually listens to like, this one is the key up, this one's the key down, key right, and key left, and every time that event is being fired, our server reacts to that, and in here I can control like the client object status of that particular character. But first and foremost, let's discuss about the client object, which I mentioned earlier. So here we have another object, the client units object, and similar to the socket clients, the objective of this is to keep track of the characters or the people who are connected to our like little playground right here, where the cats are being displayed and they can move freely. And the reason why I created another one to keep track is to keep track of their movements. The first object, which I discussed previously, is only responsible for keeping track of their connection. The second one is for the character itself, the character class, and the movement. So if we open this, I have a functional component here. It's called client unit. So if you guys are not familiar, in JavaScript, this is called an object method. So basically, an object method it contains properties on which you can register. Say for example, this one on our object method right here, you can see that it takes ID as the parameter or of the argument, and then in here I have a nested object which represents the client, and inside that object it has the ID, the name, the X and Y position of the character, of where the character is in right now on the screen. Accelerate it just signifies how much speed is the character running. Like right now, this is the speed of 5. Movement represents the key up, key down, left and right state. So if ever the client is pressing down, then the key down is going to be true. If the client is pressing left and right, it's going to be true. Key up, vice versa, and so on and so forth. The last one is the update position. So the way this works is, whenever our client, if we take a look at our client code right here, whenever the client is pressing the up button, there's gonna be an emitting function which is gonna be sent to the server, and when the server listens to the key press emitted action, you can see here that what it's doing is that it's trying to react with what the client did, or what movement the client did. And whenever the client is moving up, it's going to change its state. Here I'm passing on the client code. You can see here on the state, I'm trying to figure out whether the key is down. If it is, if it's pressed down, then the state for the key up is true, otherwise it's false. Same thing goes for the other arrow key movements. So if ever the arrow key up is true, it's going to respond that on the movement, or it's going to register that on the movement object, and it's going to say true here. So whenever it's true, the update position, whenever you call the update position, it's going to figure out whether the key up movement is true, and if it is, then it's going to control the client position Y, which you can see here, and it's going to decrease the value of that, because the upward movements is on a decreasing motion, downwards is always increasing. Same thing goes for the left and the right. So the way it works on how the movements are being are being kept track is by this set interval method right here at the bottom of our server code. So this is the one responsible for I wouldn't say repainting, it's more like broadcasting the current position or movements of the clients which are connected right here. So that's why, if you can notice, if we open like a new browser here, connect it to our local host, our first client, which is here on the right side, has a different moveset compared to the other one, because every time you open a new client, it's going to create a new client unit, right? A new client unit, which is a new object with different properties. So each client connected has their own different properties, so they never share the same value. So that's what's good about this, and that's being broadcasted like every 33 seconds, I believe. So I mean 33 frames per second, yeah, for all the gamers out there. But yeah, that's the main gist of how I'm keeping track of the movements and how I make them distinct to the other clients. They are being registered to, similar to the socket clients, they are being registered to an object, a JavaScript object, on which they have their own unique properties: the position, the movement, the accelerate, the update position, and so on and so forth. You can take this one up the notch, and maybe you can like ask, whenever the client connects here, you can like have a prompt here, and you can specify how fast you want to go or how fast you want to walk whenever you get connected. But you know, just to break it down to you, that's how I was able to pull this one off. Whenever the client is pressing the key, because I'm listening here on the add event listener, I'm listening to the keystrokes of, you know, the keyboard. So we're only interested with the arrow up, down, left, and right. So whenever it's being pressed by the client, it's going to emit a key press event, which then again is going to be listened by our server right here. So whenever there's a key press, it's going to update the client instance itself. So yeah, I hope this kind of gives you an idea on how to, you know, improve this, right? But just as a baseline, this is how I was able to pull this off. There are plenty of ways to do this. Like pure discretion, this is not the proper way. If you're into game development, or if you're like taking a game design course, there are plenty ways of how you can pull this off in a much more optimized manner. But for me, you know, I'm just doing this with all the knowledge that I know right now in the web development. I could have made this better, maybe by utilizing maybe what do you call this, a canvas. I believe that's used for games most of the time. But you know, this is just like a simple div or container, and this is just like an element which is already present on the page, and I'm just controlling it. So yeah, that's how I was able to pull this one off. Yeah. So next, we're going to be discussing about how I'm generating the character sprite itself on the client side code. So we already know like the basics of our server code. We're going to be looking at our client code on our next the next session of our video. So yeah.